Miro takes a direct shot at the Undertaker. This one just slipped past me last week. As a matter of fact, when I sat down to edit last week's show, I pulled up my YouTube and I fucking searching for something to watch, and I came across this interview with Sean Ross Sapp, where Miro sat down to talk with SRS for Fightful on YouTube. And this one, like, as soon as I heard it, I was kicking myself. So I was like, God damn it. Like, I was already in the process of editing the video. So, like, what do I do now? Do I run back downstairs and record a whole new clip and try to stuff it in and edit this apart and fucking piece it all back together? It would have added significant time. So, I figured I would hold on to it this week, for this week here. If you have not seen or heard this clip, Miro doing an interview with Sean Ross Sapp, talking about wrestlers, what they do during their downtime nowadays. Talking about video, Miro talking about his video game, his love of video gaming, and how a lot of wrestlers just sit around and fucking game at the end of the night. And then that led to how wrestlers back in the day look down upon the new generation because they sit around and play video games and stuff, and they don't necessarily kick it how they used to kick it back in the day. Check out this clip.
I think video games are such an important part of today's world, and people are trying to talk bad. I was going to say a bad word. People are trying to talk bad about video games, which I never understood, man. We all have our downtime. Some people want to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, and do heroin, and some other want to play video games, And some of these old timers are calling this a bad thing, which I don't think that's a bad thing. Just because we have more brains now than the people before, that doesn't mean video games are bad.
You know what? I agree with you.
Sorry, Undertaker, we don't have guns and drugs, and we don't fight each other backstage.
You know that's the headline. You know that's getting picked up, right?
Do you think I give a shit?
I love it.
I fucking love this shit. A direct shot at Miro. As far as I'm aware, Undertaker has not responded, but Undertaker should eat those words. When he sat around and he was talking about, how all these kids these days are all just a bunch of nerds, basically sitting around jerking each other off and shit. Back in my day, we used to beat the fuck out of each other and fucking chug whiskey bottles and smash them over our heads. And those were the good old days where men were men and burly chested, smoking cigars and shooting craps out back and fucking arm wrestling and all that shit, and shooting fucking steroids in each other's assholes. That kind of stuff. Times have changed, and for the better. A lot of wrestlers are weed heads nowadays, but there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. That helps them just kick back and relax, and then they just sit and play fucking video games. Because they're all nerds. Everybody my generation, we're wrestling fans. We grew up wrestling fans because we're nerds. Back in the day, those guys that got into wrestling did it because they were tough guys that were recruited either from sports, or bouncers at bars, or fucking weightlifters, or whatever they were. A lot of those were just tough guys brought into the business to make money. And even the ones that had the respect and the love for the business, they were brought up the hard way by the grizzled vets and stuff. Nowadays, like, people are just chilling. They just want to kick back, play some games and stuff, and that's fucking awesome. That's how it should be. Instead of going out and causing chaos or being tough guys at the bar or fucking, doing whiskey shots all night and snorting coke off hookers' fucking tits and shit. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. The 80s are great. The good old days, there's fun stories from those days, I love sitting around and listening to the old timers talk about, back in our day, we fucking, the Harley Race brings a gun to fucking shoot Hulk Hogan or something like that. Like, those are real stories when Miro says, sorry, we don't have guns and drugs. He's not exaggerating. So, but, times are different now, and a guy like the Undertaker, especially a guy like the Undertaker, because he's such a legend and such a guy that so many people look up to, or at least did look up to, that now when he's going out there and he's just shitting on the new generation and basically calling them all a bunch of pussies and stuff, how do you think that's going to go over with the current locker room? And I'll tell you what, Undertaker, as badass as he is, Miro will kick the fucking shit out of him. I promise you that. I promise you that. Especially now, because Undertaker's all old and feeble and shit. But, you know, I would even put Taker in his prime, American badass Undertaker against Miro right now. Miro looks like a fucking killing machine. I would put my money on Miro. So, just the whole notion that you got to be a tough guy and a fucking alcoholic and a fucking cocaine junkie and all that stuff to be a real man and be a professional wrestler like that. Like, I'm glad all those stereotypes are gone. And you know what? At the time, wrestling was a tough guy's business, and it still is. Everybody that goes out there, they're all tough guys. Don't ever, ever, ever mistake that. Any one of those guys will kick your fucking ass in a heartbeat. My ass, your ass, same time. Both of us knock our heads together, double noggin knocker, and we're out every time. But back in the day, like, the UFC didn't exist. So a lot of the tough guys that wanted to make professional money in fighting or wrestling or grappling or something athletic that was tough at the same time, you know, without going into boxing and just punching in the face, there was no other money to make other than wrestling. But I always like to tell this story like this, and maybe not a story, but just kind of pitch that. I believe when the UFC came along, there was a fork in the road, and especially because the Ultimate Fighter blew up, and because of that, UFC blew up because of WWE. These wrestling fans. It was put the Ultimate Fighter. UFC existed before WWE, before they had the Ultimate Fighter, but they were like cockfighting. It was like underground. It wasn't a big deal. It was a mixed martial arts thing, but it wasn't like national TV major. But when they had the Ultimate Fighter, that's what elevated them to megastardom. That's what got UFC exposed to a nationwide audience. And how did they do that? They piggybacked off of the WWE audience with the Ultimate Fighter, and there was a branch in the road. At that point, the people that liked wrestling for the Jim Cornette, we believe this is real. We want to believe it's a fight and this could actually be happening and blah, 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 right? You know, Cornette always likes to lean on phony. It's phony. Nobody's going to believe. He sticks his hands in his pockets. It's so phony. Nobody's going to believe it's real. Dude, nobody believed it's real since they saw the UFC right after Monday Night Raw with their own eyes, and they saw what real professional wrestling would look like theoretically. I mean, that's what UFC is. So those people went towards the UFC, and that audience blew up. And that's where, you know, you look at this, where did these multi-million audience from the Attitude Era go? Well, some of them grew up and grew out of it. Others, you know, they went to UFC. And then the other fork went towards the wrestling that we know now, which is athleticism and character and gimmicks and silliness and flippy floppies and fun stuff. Guys sticking their hands in their pockets. People didn't do that back in the day prior to UFC because they wanted wrestling to have a shred of believability and reality to it. Now everybody knows that's out the window with the internet, with all the shoot interviews, with the UFC. It's not a real thing anymore. So wrestling is phony, and it's inherently phony. It's how it looks nowadays. So that's just what it is. Wrestling has changed, and therefore the people that are performing it nowadays are the nerds. They're the people that are drawn to the characters and to the stories and to the you know, that's who's wrestlers nowadays. It doesn't mean that they're not tough guys. It doesn't mean that they're not cool guys. It just means that they're of a different generation who are in this for different reasons, brought to it for different reasons, and they're just a different type of person. They're me and you. Different variations of me and you, only they actually go to the gym and work out and stuff. But yeah, this was a fun one to bring to you because it takes a lot of balls. Miro takes a lot of balls to go directly at the Undertaker, and I think he's got the support because I don't think many people are happy with the Undertaker nowadays because of all the bullshit that he says, right? And some of you guys are going to be lockstep and key with that. A lot of you guys are going to be like, yeah, no, Undertaker was right. Cornette's right. We don't need that phony shit in wrestling. Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, there's UFC, and when Ring of Honor was around, and I've been a strong proponent of this too, now that Tony Khan has it, is that Ring of Honor should remain, they should stick with that pure, you know, they have the pure wrestling title. They need to stick with that gimmick for their whole promotion. They need to be the most realistic, sports-like, athletic. You know, they got to get, there should never have been a Danhausen in Ring of Honor. That kind of shit doesn't need to be there. I do believe on a national stage, wrestling should have the smorgasbord, you know, where you got your real believable wrestlers and then you got your gimmicks and your LOLs and stuff. So, God, it's a long-winded way of just saying that wrestling has changed, and it's dope that Miro took a shot back at The Undertaker because not a lot of people have the balls to do it. And not only does Miro have the balls to do it, but he'd be able to back it up too. So I don't think Undertaker's going to say a whole lot, but if he does, it'll be fun to hear, and I'm certainly going to cover it. But until then, on to the motherfucking next. Bitch.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.